Hello and welcome to Inside Politics. My name is Anastasiya Lavrina and now we are here in our special studio at World Urban Forum 13th session taking place here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Now I'm joined by a very distinguished guest, Mr. Jonathan Reckford, who is CEO of Habitat for Humanity International. Warm welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
It's a great honor for us to welcome you here at World Urban Forum 13th session in Baku. And first of all, welcome to Azerbaijan.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Reckford, you are already mentioned many times that you are impressed by Azerbaijan's proactive approach to urban development. But what exactly caught your eye here at WUF 13?
You know, what I'm most excited about at WUF is that housing is at the top of the agenda. And for so long, it's been an invisible crisis. And I think now, in many ways, that in high-income countries, it's become unaffordable. The invisible crisis has become visible. But Habitat for Humanity believes everyone should have a decent place to live. And so we're glad to see, rightfully, the recognition that if we don't address housing, we can't address so many other needs in society. And then in many ways, housing is a prerequisite. If we want people to have good health, good educations, good livelihoods, that starts with housing.
Absolutely. WUF 13 brings together so many participants. I guess this is a record number, over 40,000 participants from 182 countries, if I'm not mistaken. Why do you think now Baku attracted, and this forum attracted so many people? Because the problem with urbanization sustainability exists not the first year, but now so many people are coming here to find the right solution for that.
I do think there's a moment right now, and sadly the moment is because we have such a housing problem. So I think the theme attracts people. I think there's a recognition that we need to find new solutions to these huge challenges. And that's, I think, perhaps why we've seen such a record turnout.
Very interesting. WUF 13 is all about the future of cities. From your perspectives, what is the biggest challenge cities face right now in 2026?
Well, as a housing organization, you'll be shocked to find that I believe housing is the #1 challenge. And not just me. When I've talked to mayors, governors, heads of state, and even international organizations, now finally housing across the board is considered the top issue. And I think it is because if people don't have housing, so many other things don't work. And so we're also seeing it's become a political problem that when people are paying half their income on housing or living in really horrific conditions, that creates political instability as well. So I think it's a high priority at every level of government, and that's a part of the driver of why people are paying attention now.
Political problem and the willingness of the policymakers to cooperate to find a solution. How do you think now in the 2026, if the government officials are willing to unite the efforts, or the political divisions still affect the process?
You know, I think we have solutions. What we need is the political will. There's a politician I heard recently who said, we know what to do, we just don't know how to do it and get reelected. So I do think there is a challenge of getting the resources, but in many ways it's partly budget as well, because if governments think about it the right way, if they invest more in housing, they'll actually be able to invest less in health and some of the other areas, because we'll see families being more stable, more self-sufficient. So I think in some ways, I remember being in an interview where I sat on a panel with the health minister of New Zealand a number of years ago, and he said something that surprised me at the time. He said the highest return on investment for the health of the country would be to invest in winterizing housing for vulnerable elderly, because they would spend so much less in treating tuberculosis and pneumonia and respiratory illnesses. So I think sometimes thinking more holistically or systematically would allow us to invest more in housing.
So this is the second such a huge event Azerbaijan is hosting, organizing since the time of COP29. And if you remember, during COP29, financial solution and the formation of the budget to deal with the climate issues was the key element. And many experts now trying to find the correlation in between of these two big events, COP29, its consequences, and WUF 13. Do you also see these correlations, and how exactly the outcomes may benefit the society in the future?
I do see a very strong correlation because much as I thought about health and education, if you want to solve the climate crisis, you have to deal with housing. The built environment represents 40% of the emissions. So if we're not thinking about energy efficient housing, that's a huge challenge. One of our biggest initiatives in Europe as we do our work is actually working with former Soviet era apartment blocks that are terribly energy inefficient. And by doing energy retrofits, the homeowners can actually pay for the retrofits from the savings in their energy costs. And we see great opportunities here with empty spaces as well, and reclaiming those, rehabbing them, which is one of the most environmentally friendly ways to do it. So I believe as we see more and more extreme weather, building resilient housing is the right answer. And we need to do it in a way that is both meeting the physical needs of families and communities and meeting our climate goals. I think that's possible, but we've got to be really thoughtful about how we do that.
Absolutely. You touched very important elements, energy and energy sustainability. Here at this WOOF 13, it was also mentioned that now the city is being considered as sustainable, not exactly from its size, but energy sustainability, on how sustainable it is from the perspective of fuels, green energy transition, and etc. How do you see this process in the region itself, in Azerbaijan, for example? The country is rich in fossil fuels, but in a parallel way also dealing with the green energy and renewables.
I think, in the short term, we need an all-of-the-above solution. And so there's no question the way that we build, the right answer for cities is actually to build mixed-income, mixed-use cities, which is actually best for the families, the community, and the environment. Because if people can live close to where they work, traffic is reduced, you actually are reducing emissions, and everyone is better off. But many times our cities haven't been designed that way. So I think thinking about how we design is a really important aspect. And then thinking about transitional fuels. So we want to build energy efficient housing. The first thing we can do is use less energy. The second step is moving towards renewables and increasing the mix of renewable fuels. So I think there are good solutions out there, not going to be quick, but one of the ways I think we can make the most progress is actually fixing up energy inefficient buildings so that we actually reduce our need for that energy.
Right. So you know about the experience of Azerbaijan. It was mentioned by His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev at the opening ceremony, and also how Azerbaijan is rebuilding the cities or building from the scratch, specifically in Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur. And the experience of Azerbaijan indeed can serve as a good opportunity for other countries to learn, also for Ukraine, for example, where the experience of Azerbaijan is already being considered. So rebuilding infrastructure, building from the scratch, in your experience, how does it, giving the people a stable and new home, help heal communities after years of conflict?
Sadly, we have worked often in post-conflict zones or post-disaster zones. And so I've watched firsthand, actually, that the process of rebuilding can actually heal the scars. So Habitat for Humanity's primary mission is housing, but actually the center of our mission is bringing people together. And I've seen quite extraordinary things. I'll give you some examples. In Sri Lanka, we built 2,500 homes in the post-conflict area, and the homes were all built with the former combatants building together. In Mindanao in the Philippines, we had the rebels building alongside the local government officials, and actually, so there was not only building housing and solving a significant problem, you're also building community and social ties that actually can reduce the conflict. And we have seen that across faith divides, across political divides, and I think it's so important that as we think about reconstruction, we not only think about the physical reconstruction, but how do we actually rebuild the communities as well as the physical structures.
So you believe that Azerbaijan experience can be indeed a good asset for other countries in the post-conflict recovery and reconstruction? I
really hope so. We need to learn more. We've not worked here in this country, though we have worked broadly across the region. And I think Ukraine is going to be a massive effort to rebuild. And I do think as we've worked in Ukraine already, we're seeing that if we can reduce energy costs, now that energy poverty is a real issue, if we can actually, you're going to have a huge number of displaced people. How do we help them reintegrate into their communities? So I think not only how we build, where we build, and the way that we bring the families and communities into the process is critically important.
Mr. Reckford, I do know that you have a very good experience of work in big businesses. How does your business background help you run a global housing charity?
You know, I think I talked before that housing requires a multi-sector approach. So we need the public sector, private sector, and social sector. That also means we need multi-sector leaders to help in. Sometimes I see social sector leaders not being able to talk to private sector because they don't speak the same language, or government leaders not speaking the same language. So I joke that I'm bilingual, but I think working in large multinational corporations gave me leadership principles. It's not the same in a nonprofit or social sector, but the leadership principles are very similar. And so I learned a lot in the different companies at which I worked about scale, about distributed leadership, about managing real estate. And so I think I've taken pieces of all those roles, and they've all been helpful in my role at Habitat for Humanity.
Indeed, you have an extensive experience. And if I'm not mistaken, you have been leading Habitat for Humanity for over 20 years.
That's true.
What is the most inspiring story or project that still keeps you motivated every single day?
Well, for me, it's so hard to pick one, but the stories that always keep me motivated are the impact. It's not just the house, it's what happens to the family or community because they got a home. And I was actually just reminded in one of my early trips, and I wish we had more of these stories, but I was visiting Egypt when I had just started work, and there were two images that really captured me. One, we were building with families in the center of Cairo who have some of the toughest jobs. They're actually the garbage pickers who were collecting the garbage and sorting it and recycling to make an income. And the conditions, you can imagine, were not very nice. We had a solution there where we built up, and so the families could, on the ground level, sort the garbage and they could keep the animals, but then they had clean, nice apartments up and built so that multiple generations could live there. And something in that region that really struck me was a young man told me it wasn't just a physical place to live. He couldn't get married until he could provide a home for his beloved. And so that house was the way to, actually their small apartment was the way to launch the future of their family together. And a second, in that same visit, we were visiting down in the Minya area, and there we have Coptic Christians, about 10%, 90% Muslim. And I wish people could see these stories. And there, families would move out of their home for 90 days, and we would turn it into a proper home. And there you had a Coptic family who was so helpful to his neighbors that the imam invited that family to live with him in the 90 days when they moved out of their home. And I do think that when communities come together to solve problems like housing, we really do, as we say, build not just homes, but communities and hope.
Indeed, when the communities come together, when non-governmental organizations and policymakers and political institutions come together, also we have to expect the results we are willing to achieve. And let me conclude with one final question. What are your takeaways, key takeaways from this forum you are expecting to implement in your future work?
You know, what I'm really excited about this forum, first, of course, is that housing is front and center on the agenda. But two, I love the convening here where we have government leaders, we have financiers, we have social sector, we have academics. And so aligning around really practical solutions. And I've been in a whole series of meetings talking about not just theory, but how do we actually do real projects on the ground and take it to scale. And a long time ago, Habitat for Humanity realized we couldn't build our way out of the problem. And that really forced us into policy change. We launched the report we already mentioned around the continuum of housing, but also into systems work. And so we realized for so many families, nearly 3 billion around the world, they're living in substandard conditions. They have a housing, but it's not adequate. So first we need to work on property rights, but then we need to work on finance. One of our leadership areas has been actually helping create a new asset class of housing microfinance, which is helping these very low income families have small loans that help them step by step fix up their houses. And I think the tangible outcomes we're looking for are that these new partnerships really translate at scale into countries and corporations and community leaders building together to significantly increase the commitment to housing.
Mr. Reckford, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us in our special studio. We wish you good luck and hope to see you again in Azerbaijan.
My pleasure. I look forward to coming back and spending more time in your country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just to remind you, watched Inside Politics here on A News Special Studio at WOOF 13. Now I was joined by Mr. Jonathan Reckford, who is CEO of Habitat for Humanity International. My name is Anastasiya Lavrina. Do stay with A News and see you soon.